You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again to commence operations here on the movable feast that is the Options Insider Radio Network. And of course, we kick things off with the bi-weekly options extravaganza known far and wide around the globe as the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever scintillating, at least we tend to think so. It looks like a lot of you agree these days. Folks coming in all over the place, just downloading, streaming till their heart's content. Of course, the Options Insider Radio Network. If you're on the on-demand side, we know many of you are hanging out there. Hey, if you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing. Clearly, it has an impact. All the new platforms that keep coming online, some of these platforms, our network predates most of these platforms, so including iTunes, believe it or not. We were kind of right there in the early inception. Definitely the iPhone, maybe not iTunes, but definitely the iPhone we predate. So yeah, these new ones, the new reviews are more important than ever, you could argue. So get out there if you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to get exclusive content coming at you, you want options oddities in your ear holes, you want, of course, pro Q&As, you want to be one of the cool cats who actually wins our sweet pro trading crates. We have given away a few of them of late. Then theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. And speaking of giveaways, we always kick off our broadcast week, or at least we have in the last couple of weeks as I've been traveling. Everyone was traveling hither and yon. And, we still are in some of that mode, but you know what? We can wait no longer because it is time to commence the goodness that is our 80s wrestling guessing game, where we, of course, go out, have our compatriots here battle to the death to see who can name the 80s wrestler via his entrance music. And I have finally secured, remember I hinted at there was a pretty cool, kind of unique one-off prize that I was trying to get my hands on. There was, San Diego Comic-Con comes around, they roll all kinds of crazy exclusives that are super awesome, and they go away in like 30 seconds. I was able to secure 2 of this thing, one for me because it's awesome, and then one for these two, our 2 contestants here to battle over. And it is none other than, you remember, of course, we played him on the show. In fact, I should make him the subject of today's, but we already have today's in the can already. But of course, one of our favorite 80s wrestlers. And my favorite incarnation of him was, of course, Sergeant Slaughter via the G.I. Joe cartoon. And the folks over there at Hasbro who own the G.I. Joe brand. Sergeant Slaughter's been kind of absent. I guess they didn't have his license or whatever the heck it was. But for San Diego Comic-Con, for an exclusive, they brought back Sergeant Slaughter, not as a wrestling figure, but in his G.I. Joe incarnation with all sorts of cool extras, including just like a little carded version of his own G.I. Joe action figure coming with him. So a lot of cool stuff. Of course, it sells out in like seconds. But I was able to secure 2 of them. Again, one for me and one for the winner of our battle. See if they can name who our next person is. You could argue this person, the most instrumental person of the 80s wrestling era and the 90s era and every other one that pretty much came with it until recently. Even though this music we're going to play is actually from the 90s. He didn't really get theme music until the 90s, but he was a huge integral part of the 80s as well. Let's see. Can you guess our next wrestler via his entrance music?
No chance, that's what you got. Up against a machine too strong. Pretty politicians buying souls for run song puppets. Won't find their place in line. But tie a string around your finger now, boy, 'cause it's just a matter of time. 'Cause you've got no chance. No chance in hell. You've got no chance. No chance in hell. You've got no chance. No chance in hell. You've got no chance. No chance in hell.
No chance in hell, indeed. Now we go out. It's a rare week. He's going to win either way because he's the only player. I guess he has to get it right. But both of the pit folks rarely on planes, actually, as we speak right now. So we have the one, the only Uncle Mike TOSAW. He's back from his traveling adventures hither and yon. Of course, Uncle Mike from St. Charles Wealth Management. A, welcome back to the program, sir. And B, can you name that person who was instrumental in the 80s and most other eras of wrestling, even if this music came from a later era, sir?
Man, this is... I'm trying to think of someone who had no theme music in the 80s, but then went like to this Rage Against the Machine type persona in the 90s, but who is still part of the 80s.
Let me give you a hint. When you and I knew this person in the 80s, he was not a wrestler. In the 90s, he kind of, in his later years, became a bit of an active wrestler, had perhaps a storied feud.
Shoot. I'll go with Steve McMichael.
Okay, there's a Mick in there. You're part way. It's Vince McMahon. That was in honor of Vince because he just stepped down due to some unfortunate circumstances, shall we say.
Wow, I would not have guessed that.
Yes, when you and I were watching it back in the 80s, he was just the announcer, right? A pretty good announcer, actually. But he pretended. They had another guy who was pretended to be the president, right?
Jack Tunney.
Yes, Jack Tunney, president of the WWF. I don't know why they went through all that charade, but they did. And then in the 90s, with all the Stone Cold stuff, they started, I think it actually started with the Montreal Screwjob. That's the first time he came out and kind of acknowledged that he was actually the CEO on air. And then he started getting all that heat, and they thought, this is cool. Why don't we go with this? Everybody hates their boss. So they kind of created that whole Stone Cold and him thing, and that kind of saved the company in the 90s, and there we go, on from there. And so I've been holding on to that one for a couple of weeks, as Vince has actually been out for a couple of weeks. So unfortunately, Uncle Mike, you were the only competitor, and you get 0 points towards our... Have you seen that picture? That looks pretty sweet, doesn't it? That's Yo-Joe era vintage Sergeant Slaughter kind of cool stuff. So I guess...
mean, that was cool. When Sergeant Slaughter came to G.I. Joe, I mean, how can you not love it?
It was the best part of the show, by far. Sergeant Slaughter, you could argue his best incarnation was on G.I. Joe, not even in the ring. In G.I. Joe, the movie, great character. As we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody. I thought for sure we had a gimme for Uncle Mike. Free points. I even almost declared it at the top of the show. I guess I could be nice and give him a bonus point. I'll have to put it out to the producers and see what they think. Does Uncle Mike get a bonus point for showing up on the show today and doing battle, even though he fell valiantly by the wayside of Vince? Our chat Our chat knew it was going to be Vince like 2 weeks ago before I even played the music. They're like, oh, it's going to be Vince. It's going to be no chance in hell. Yeah. And yes, unfortunately, Uncle Mike not running along with this one. You know what was running along a little bit ago, listeners? Of course, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there in today's markets. What was running along kind of nicely was the market. It seems like it is kind of getting sucked back down. We got up to, let's like a little bit north of 4180, 4183 or so in the S&P. And now has just like there's just this sucking vortex right back to the 41.5 strike. We're right around that level again. So the S&P kicking off the show is pretty much unched after rallying nearly 1% on the day. We had NASDAQ up about 0.15% and Dow up a little bit over 0.1%. So whatever was juicing that rally early in the session, not getting the love anymore out there, listeners. Let's see if our Vol friends and everyone else, they're getting the love. You know, VIX, when we kicked off the show, is at about 21.5. That puts it down about 0.8. It's now at about 2170. So that puts it down about 0.6 of a point. So not a huge move from where we were on Thursday's show. VVIX, a.k.a. the Vol of Vol, at about an 87. That puts it up 2 points from where it was on last Thursday's show. VXX, you know, the product that just kind of does whatever the hell it wants right now, is at about a 2190, up a whopping 0.15. I'm curious, any of you folks out there still slinging VXX? I mean, I won't judge if you are or not. I'm just curious. We don't hear a lot about it anymore from a lot of our listeners, I think for obvious reasons. But I'm curious if you guys are still in the trenches, still playing along with VXX. Seems like everybody who's still playing out there is universally in the puts. No one's touching the calls. But hey, if you have a different story, hit us up. Let us know. UVXY down below the 10 handle now, listeners. Down about 2/3 of a point to about 985 when we kicked off the show. So that's usually perilous territory for UVXY, because if you've been watching that product for a little bit, you know once it gets below 10, that's when the reverse split gods tend to strike. And the next thing you know, it's trading 40 again and things get wonky and there's all sorts of, weird contracts out there. So just bear that in mind if you're playing out there right now. SVIX, that's, of course, our inverse friend, up about 0.5 point to about 1315 when we kicked off the show. UVIX at a 10 exactly, down a point from where we were this time last show. And VolQ 2560, that's down about 0.6 of a point. So, Uncle Mike, a lot to unpack, a lot to sink your teeth into. You have been traveling for a while, so what's lighting up your tape? And maybe anything you missed over the last week you want to hit on too. Now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
In the age of smartphones and the internet, I wish I could miss things, but I can't miss anything. So what's really catching my eye right now is the 4,200 level on the SPX, in that if you look at just a chart, we hit support there probably in March and bounced off of there. Had some highs in late March. Made our most recent high was on March 29th. We crossed the 4,600 level with the S&P, and then it just went right down the crapper into late May to where it went to the 3,900 level, stopped there, and then we made another run at the 4,200 level to where support became resistance in early June. And then in mid to late June, markets went down again. Then we've kind of channeled a little bit until the most recent rally of mid-July, when the market started to make a run at it again. And so now we're at kind of a key point again, in that 4,200, or that area, not necessarily that exact number, definitely not that exact number, but kind of the area with which we are right now has acted as both support and resistance within the last 6 months. And in looking at that, this is kind of a tough area for me, in that I want to add deltas and I want to add them real badly. I always do. But I want to be very cautious of the fact that we have 4,200 staring us in the face. It's a key number, and this has acted as both support and resistance. On top of that, we have a spot, we're at a point in the market to where we are coming off of a rally of over 400 points. Which is over 10% that we've rallied over the course of the last since July 14th. And when you're at a point to where you have a 10% rally in 3 weeks, it's kind of tough to want to buy that market. But on the flip side, we've had a 10% rally over the course of the last 3 weeks. I really want to buy that. I closed out some deltas a little over a week ago, And so I've just been kind of sitting on the sidelines since then, just because of the fact that I wanted to see if we could push by the 4,200 level. And we'll see if we will, but today was kind of interesting in that I thought we might cross it earlier in the day. We got to 4186 in the SPX, 4188 in the S&P Mini. And so we just couldn't quite get the momentum to go over it. Looked like we might earlier in the day, about a half hour into the trading day, we might get a little bit more momentum, but it just kind of stalled out. So that's what I'm looking at right now. We had non-farm last week. And so on Friday, the bond market decided to sell off on that. So we're kind of right back to where we were before in the 10-year note. We're rallying a little bit today. The 10 years up roughly 0.5% on the day. So we have that. So that's another thing with which I'm looking at. And hi-ho silver. We are actually moving again in the silver space. SLV is up almost 4% on the day. So we are catching a bid in the commodity land at this point in time. And then the other thing that I think we need to consistently look at, even though it's been relatively quiet lately, is the slippery stuff, oil. It's up roughly 1% on the day. So crude is still, as of now, it's below 90, but it's knocking on the door at 89.89. So we have that in play that we need to consistently look at as well. So a lot of things happening and a lot of things going on, but I think last week with our show title, I think there was some debate over what we should name it. I almost think today it's like we're at a crossroads, or maybe what's that Robert Frost poem? There are two roads divided, and I chose the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I guess the question is which road is going to be less traveled by, or where is the narrow gate versus the wide gate if we want to go other areas, whatever the case may be. But we're very much at a crossroads right now, in my opinion, based on what charts are doing and with where we are with world events, news, and everything else.
Well, the whole Robert Frost poem would make for quite a long title. But perhaps at a crossroads, we could shorten it to, or something along those lines, and see what we can do. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned it, because when you said you wanted to add deltas, my immediate thought was, you always want to add deltas. And then you said, but I always want to add deltas. So I'm glad you at least admitted it here. First step towards conquering your problem, Mike, is admitting that you have a problem. So well done there, sir.
Very good.
You always want to add your deltas. Let's see what our market is up to. You know, this little bit of whipsaw action we're getting earlier in the session is actually driving some paper. Let's start out here in the large indexes, see what we got cooking, listeners. And VIX, kind of off to the races. We haven't seen it off to this kind of start on a day that starts green in quite some time. 282,000 contracts on the tape already. That seems even more significant when I tell you what the ADV is. It's only 437,000. That ADV has eroded. If you listen to vol views, we had several days, I think, last week where we didn't even hit the volume level we've already hit today. So it looks like we're on a good course to perhaps blow past that 430, maybe start moving that ADV back up a little bit. SPY also on the rampage today, 4.37 million contracts on the tape. ADV about 6.5 million. S, same deal, almost 1.5 million, 1.43 million contracts on the tape already for the S. That is nothing to sneeze at out there. The ADV, 2.1 million. Looks like the S is going to hit it. So looks like we're on course, on track for a pretty active day, listeners. And get this, listeners, small caps, our friends we talk about all the time, particularly out there on good old TWIFO every Thursday. But let's look at it through the IWM lens right now, not through ruts. Small caps on fire today. 708,000 contracts on the tape already for IWM. Small caps up about 0.8%. So small caps still bucking the trend. They're still feeling a strong rally mode, and the rest of the market seems like it's kind of given up the ghost. We're at 1920, so over the 1900 level again out there in small caps. The ADV, only 668,000 in IWM, so we have already blown past that. So a pretty active day. I'm looking forward to TWIFO on Thursday, see what we can uncover from some interesting paper out there. The Qs, 1.86 million contracts on the tape right now. The ADV, almost 2.5 million. It's a day that ends in Y. The NASDAQ's probably going to put up some numbers, and it is doing it again today. But pretty much all the other indexes following suit, which is kind of interesting. Let's see if the single names can hold up their end of the bargain. And the answer is actually yes. We got a pretty active single name day as well. Usually, lately, it's been, kind of one or the other. Today, we're getting both. So an interesting, pretty active day out there in the old markets. Number 10, it cost you actually a pretty impressive amount, $260,000. That's about the level we hit recently. That's usually a pretty good barometer. It takes a lot to get it over 300,000 to break into the top 10 in the single names. That's usually something crazy as a foot if you're over 300K. But 260, that's a pretty active day. That gets us to our friends Ford. Ford, man. Ford has been feeling the freaking its oats of late out here. Up another 50 cents or 3.3 cents, 3.3%, easy for me to say. Just today, up to $15.80. Man, for a while there, when I sold those 12 puts, I was kind of wearing it on those out there. Even though I didn't mind. I think I said it on Oddities. I don't mind picking up Ford at that level. Now that's looking a lot better. Yeah, closing in on 16 handle. It's up 4.25 or 36% just this month. So, man, Ford feeling its oats out there. Intriguing. What's driving all this? Solid July sales, that helps. Maybe some thoughts. Maybe, of course, this domestic chip production going to help sales for pretty much all car manufacturers that have been so just bottlenecked with chips at this point. Either way, Ford feeling its oats. Number 9, a name that has not been feeling its oats over the better part of the last year, except for the last week or two, where it's had a nice little pop. This is good old Meta Platforms, a.k.a. Facebook, trading 171.60. This is right after, you know what it is, listeners? It's our question of the week last week. That's what drove all this paper in Facebook, because now everybody's trading it up. The thing has been off to the races since we posted that. Last week, we'll get to the results of it. Last week, we asked you guys buying or fading it. The answer for the past week has been buying it, because it's up 2.7% or $4.50 just today to 171.60. Over the last week, it's up 13.75 or about nearly 9%. So a nice run here for the old, formerly known as FB. It actually got up this morning up to 175.70, almost 176. So it has actually given up a lot of its rally today, which is kind of interesting. Kicked off the day at 168, shot up to 175.70, and now has been drifting back down. So this came out of the gate roaring. And then closing down now a little bit. But still, number 9, we're already at 369,000. So we've jumped 109,000 contracts, number 10 to number 9. So this is a pretty active day, listeners. I mean, you got one removed and you're already at 369,000. Number 8, a name that's making some headlines today. It's Palantir. Maybe we'll get to them for the earnings front as well. By the way, we do have earnings season, earnings, movie results, all that good stuff, updated, hot off the presses, right for you folks, right before showtime, because our friends at Orats, they're just that nice. Palantir was popping off this morning before the bell. They went into their announcement, $11.45. They were pricing in 12.8%. They delivered, get this, listeners, 12.7%. So they actually were pricing in more juice, and it was merited. The stock, when we ran these numbers this morning, right before showtime, was at about $10. And it's still right about $10 off, nearly 12%. So it's still pretty much down. They're coming out and kind of weirdly saying, I think they revised their revenue, but also going to hire, which is weird. Again, U.S. government contracts. So that's kind of the big issue. That's been the thing that's kept me out of Palantir. I wish the Rock Lobster was here. He's kind of a bit of our resident Palantir bull, and he's been kind of talking the other side. But I sold, we made some trades in Oddities. I was kind of wearing it for a little bit. And then, of course, the stock rallied. I was able to kind of get out for a little bit of money, I think, on the Palantir side. Did well on the Hood side. But then after that, I was kind of skittish for Palantir, because it seemed like the one thing everyone wants for them is government contracts. And that seems to be the issue for them. Yet, weirdly enough, they're going to hire more at the same time. I'm not sure how that works. Either way, maybe the market trying to figure that out as well, because the stock is off about 12% today. Let's go out to number 7, AMD, already at 400,000. By the way, Palantir having done 389,000 contracts today for number 8. Number 7, 400,000 exactly. It gets us to AMD. So AMD put up some numbers today, but also getting pushed down the list a little bit. That's kind of the crazy day we're having. AMD, by the way, off about 1.8%, trading right around $100.50 for AMD. Let's go to number 6. Haven't seen them in a while. It's Bed Bath & Beyond. 432,000 contracts on the tape for BBBY. This one kind of bucking the trend. 11.25 right now, up a little over $3 or 37.6%. My goodness. And they got up as high today earlier in the session at 12.87. So they're actually coming off it a little bit. But man, quite the pop here for BBBY. If you'll recall, listeners, I believe it might have been late 2020, October 2020 or so. Before the Meme Palooza, we had that Death Watch poll. Which one of these names is going to go the way of the dodo first? And it was GameStop and Bed Bath & Beyond. And here we are a year and change later, and neither are dead. Maybe Bed Bath & Beyond a little bit closer just because GameStop had that enormous infusion of capital. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. Both here and apparently, at least today, both still thriving. Bed Bath & Beyond, good for number 6, 432,000. Then we jump again to number 5, listeners. Jump nearly 200K, 190,000 to Amazon, number 5, 622,000 contracts on the tape already. The Amazonians, man, they are doing a lot of living today. Trading 139.5 right now, off about 1%, about $1.25. They got as high today as 144.12. And then, so they opened at 141.81. So north of where we are right now, rallied up to 144.12, then have been giving it up ever since, as maybe the bulls out there today decided, what are we rallying about? And started coming for it. All right, number 4, the aforementioned AMC, feeling its oats today as well, up 343 or 15.5% to $25.5 right now. Man, and this one got up as high as 26.64. I don't know what's. I know they had that big dividend they were talking about a few days ago. I don't know why it's rallying now off that. Maybe some other news. Maybe just getting caught up in the this new wave. Can we call it? It's not quite meme 2.0 yet because we're not seeing enough of this, but there are smatterings of this here and there. We talked about a little bit on options oddities. Talked about a little bit on the odd block. Starting to see some of those trades. Still not the overwhelming majority like we saw last year, but starting to see those pockets of call action. Where do we get to the odd block in a little bit? We'll see some more of that, listeners. That's number 4, AMC, 704,000. Number 3, it's NVIDIA. Day that ends in Y. They're going to be doing some numbers today, doing some serious numbers. 723,000 contracts. Let's just see where our friends NVIDIA are hanging out at right now. NVIDIA off 14.8 or 7.8%, trading right around 175 exactly. Wow, their gaming revenue off by a third from last year's peak. So I guess apparently NVIDIA can go down. It can happen, listeners. You just need all the gamers to stop playing at once. Number 2, yes, I said number 2. It's the fruit company. It's Apple, listeners. Today doing 838,000 contracts. Apple, like it is most days, it's kind of shrugging all this off. Trading off about a third right now. Trading 165 even. Got as high today as 167.68, and then kind of coming back down off of it. So interesting stuff out here for Apple. And then number 1, you know what it is, listeners. It's the old TSLA. 904,000 contracts. Interesting, they have such an active day, and nothing's breaking the 1 million contract level. Maybe if we racked these right now, we might be at it. But intriguing stuff. Tesla up 28 3/4 handles, or 3.3% today. It got as high, let's see, as 915, trading 893.25 right now. So kind of another day that ends in Y for Tesla, moving all over the place. Good for number 1 out there today as well. As people talking about this meme stock mania. Who's this Yahoo Finance running with it? Meme stock mania makes a comeback. The names, I will say this, the names are reminiscent. Bed Bath & Beyond, GameStop, AMC, all lighting it up today. That does have a bit of a ring of 2021. And some of these volume numbers we're seeing are certainly reminiscent on it. Is it enough to call the return? I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this, listeners? Is it ape season again? Is this stuff back? Can it possibly be back given all the other massive headwinds we've seen against the broad economy and against most of these names in particular? I'm curious what maybe that should be our question. Maybe we need a revised question of the week. Tell my producers to put that down. We just put our question of the week live already, so can't be for this week, but maybe for next week. Is the meme stock palooza back, or is it dead? That'll be an interesting question of the week. By the way, the rest of our earnings popping off right now. I said Palantir ready today. Today we also have Coinbase, Roblox. This is tomorrow. Coinbase, Roblox, and Wynn Resorts. Coinbase, the cat's kind of out of the bag there. I don't think we have a lot of mystery left there. Wednesday, Jack in the Box, Wendy's, Fox, and Walt Disney. And then Bumble. Thursday, Six Flags, Rivian, Canada Goose Holdings. Let's pop off a couple of them. Let's see. We had Palantir already today before the bell. Let's do a couple more really quick. Let's go out to ELAN. We talked about that one before. They popped out before the bell today as well. Ticker symbol, of course, ELAN. They were at 1944 when they announced their pricing in 7.3%. They delivered 3.9%, and they're actually up about 2.6% right now, trading right about $20 exactly. So not a huge mover. This was of course, this is the veterinary pharmaceutical name out there, which is an intriguing sector. People will pay a lot for medications for their pets after all, but maybe in a high inflation environment, maybe not so much. Let's go out to DINO. We were just talking about this with the once and future Dr. Bix on options oddities. If you missed it, listeners, go to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. If you haven't done so already, you can check it out for yourselves. And this is ticker symbol DINO. Of course, this is HF Sinclair Energy Company. I just like their ticker. They're playing around in fossil fuels, listeners. Hence the ticker DINO. I like it. They were, let's see, going into their announcement this morning, they were at 46.30. They were pricing in 7.2%. Get this, listeners. We just talked about these guys on oddities. They delivered 0.3%. So they were kind of unched. They have since moved a little bit. That was in the immediate post-earnings blush there. They moved a whopping nothing. Now they have rallied about 2.5%. Still dramatically underperforming their straddle out there. So premium writers, maybe you had to sweat it a little bit in the morning. It dropped instantly from 48 to 46 bucks, and then right back up to about 46 and change, which puts it pretty much unched and now rallying to 47.5. So you had to sweat it a little bit, but you're actually doing all right out there. Let's see what other names we've got popping off here later this week. We got Roblox after the bell on the 9th. You know, Roblox, they're kind of that, mobile game. It's a platform now. It's not really a game. It started off as a kind of a game, but now it's just a platform for a bunch of other stuff. 49.25 is where they were trading, ticker symbol RBLX. Trading $7, so they're pricing in $7. In the past, they moved 9.31, so a little bit light on the juice front for Roblox. They've had some headlines of late, so interesting that it's a little bit lighter. WYNN Resorts out there, this is 66.71 is where they were trading, and they were pricing in $4.14. In the past, they've moved $2.09. So interesting, a little bit extra juice out there as well. Let's go out to, let's see. We've got so many names popping off, listeners. Let's go out to, Jack in the Box. Why not? You like your West Coast food. This is 10th before the bell. 74.25 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $4.75. In the past, they've moved 2.75. So that's a lot of extra juice for Jack in the Box. Input prices, inflation, what's driving that, listen? I don't know, but that's a lot of juice. Bumble, we talked about them recently. This is the dating site for the ladies out there. They're popping off on the 10th after the bell. Hard to imagine it took this long for someone to come up with the idea. A dating site for ladies, I mean, bars and things have been doing ladies' night forever, right? So you think that would have been a no-brainer, but apparently it took this long. Bumble, ticker symbol BMBL. They launched to a lot of fanfare, listeners, and they've had a little bit of a rough run. They were $48 when they went public last year. They rallied to their high of $61 in September, and then since then they've kind of come for it. They got down actually at $37.50 right now, so they have come for it off 22%, but they actually got as low in March at $16.25. So this thing has more than doubled from its low since March, which is kind of interesting. This one got shellacked early. A lot of other names had their lows around the mid-June timeframe, but mid-March for Bumble. Interesting. Let's see. They're at $37.50 when they ran these numbers. They were pricing in $4.43. In the past, they've moved 7.5. So a lot less juice in Bumble. Not much vol for the ladies this cycle. Interesting. And let's go out to Disney, kind of the mega juggernaut. They own pretty much all things. They probably own you if you haven't checked yet, listeners. Ticker symbol Diz, of course. They're popping off 10th after the bell. 106.63 is where they're trading. They're pricing in 6.25. In the past, they've moved 3.44. Having a nice pop today at 109.69 now, up 2.8, almost 3%. So they have recovered a bit from their sell-off as well. They got below 100 for a while. They got down to, looks like their low for the year was about $90, and they bounced off that. That was, of course, in actually mid-July. So this came many months after the Bumble low. Interesting. But have rebounded a little bit from there. Obviously, still some questions. I know their CEO was under fire. Bob Chapek, not exactly the most popular guy out there. Let's go out to Canada Goose Holdings really quickly. We might be talking about them again in a little bit. So the 11th before the bell, they're trading $20 exactly. They're pricing in about $2.50. In the past, they've moved 2.25. So a little bit of extra juice, but not a ton out there. All right, listeners. Of course, if you want all these reports for yourselves, you know where to go. I'll do one more really quickly. Let's go Six Flags just for fun, because let's go out to the theme parks. How much theme park vol is there? They're on the 11th before the bell. $24.50 is where they were trading, I should say. They're pricing in $2.36. In the past, they moved to $1.56. That Six Flags company has had some corporate headwinds of late. And of course, the pandemic, not exactly conducive to a high-touch business like theme parks. But intriguing stuff here nonetheless. Obviously, pricing in a wee bit of extra juice. So we shall see if that's merited on the 11th. Right now, let's see. It seems like extra juice is the way to go because our season is looking heavy, listeners. 113% is where it's averaging out right now. Week 1, 98%, so that has dropped a little bit. They do revise these numbers over time. Week 2, 102%, that has also dropped. They were both around 105. Then in week 3, coming in hot, 124%. That brings our average to 113%, which is still well north of our kind of overall season average during the pandemic of about 86%. So intriguing stuff. No trades being entered or exited today, but now we're up to, get this, listeners, 81 long straddles that we are trading for, or I should say tracking and trading for you. 59 long calendars. And looks like they closed out all their short straddles. There might just be a glitch in this report. I thought they still had some short straddles on. By the way, check those out for yourselves. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. As we keep on rolling into our next segment, it is time to go to the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, listeners, let's do it. Let us unleash the Eye of Sauron, see where it fixes its fiery gaze today. Our Eye of Sauron has been fixed very firmly on this name here for a little while now. We were talking about him a little bit on the show last week. Talked about him a lot with the ones in future Dr. Vicks on Options Oddities. They are back. This is Vroom Inc. Perhaps another sign of the meme resurgence. This name was a hot one we were talking about not too long ago on the network. I think it was back in the March timeframe where this one was really making all its noise. But it has had a resurgence. Vroom, of course, on the year, ticker symbol VRM, listeners. A year ago, I mean, this one's just kind of emblematic of just the meltdown that so many of these names have experienced. Was trading $38.50. It hit its high of $39.50 right about exactly a year ago. And ever since then, has just been annihilated. It's trading $2.40 right now. But it actually got down to about $1 not too long ago. It got down to about, I was right in the mid-June timeframe. And a lot of stocks hit their low. And this one did, just came for this one. And it seemed like the writing might be on the wall for this name. We were talking about selling some puts in it back in around that time frame, a little bit earlier, I believe, on Options Oddities. I kind of kept my powder dry. I tried to sell some, but I wanted to be a little bit judicious because my spidey sense was tingling on this one. And it seemed like that was merited because the stock took a hit after that. Sometimes juicy puts are actually underpriced, listeners, as we've all discovered with EDU. Again, if you don't know, go check out Options Oddities there. But I know some of our listeners did get in, and so some of you are wearing it on the stock. I'm glad to see you've had a resurgence now to make some of that money back, and you actually get some nice exits on this, which has been good. You've been rewarded for your patience and your diligence here. But folks are coming back with more play, and there's more size. This might be one of the biggest single-name trades we're seeing today out here. This is Vroom, ticker symbol VRM. Right now, 90,000 of these SEP3 calls went up for 44 cents. These were crossed kind of early on in the session. The stock was right about here, actually a little bit higher, 252. By the way, there are earnings today after the bell in Vroom, so some folks are coming to play ahead of earnings in Vroom. There was some other paper going up with it. The 3 calls in September were all clearly opening. We were talking about these before. They were trading for 30-odd cents not too long ago, I think on Friday's show. Obviously trading 44 cents now. But given if past is prologue, they might have bought these because folks have been loading up on some upside up here of late. And these things were 40 at 45 when they went up at 44 cents. We also saw the 2.5 calls going up for 47 cents. By the way, these vol numbers, listeners, certainly meme stock reminiscent. 182 vol for the SEP calls. The AUG 2.5s, 30,000 of those going up for 47 cents. That's a 256 vol. Yeah, that has meme stock written all over it. We also saw another 20,000 of the 2.5 calls going up for 47 cents a few minutes before that. So you're talking 50,000 total of the 2.5s. Given what we saw on Friday, where it looks like people were buying the 2.5s and the 3s, I got a feeling they were probably buying these as well, which again is for a lot of our listeners could be exciting times. You could get a nice pop out of the stock, or I know some of you have already taken advantage of these crazy bids and these calls to sell some covered calls at some very juicy levels here. Also saw 20,000 of the Jan 2 puts going up for 93 cents as well. Jan 2024. I take that back. That's a long way out. So it looks like, and they got 93 cents for those. Wow. So looks like they may have sold those. That was a very wide market, as you might imagine, 85 at 115. That has the whiff of a sale. So that could be, your proverbial bullish risk reversal here, listeners, in which case someone is really bullish on Vroom if they actually sold 20,000 of these Jan 2024 two puts for 93 cents, but the stock was $1 not too long ago, listeners. And then they bought 50,000 of the 2.5 calls for 47 cents. And then Uncle Mike, if that's not enough, 90,000 more of the SEP3 calls for a stock that most people thought was maybe going the way of the dodo not too long ago. What are your thoughts on this just call palooza, perhaps financed with some juicy puts in Vroom, Mr. Uncle Mike?
I can't say that this is something that I would really want to. If I'm getting more than 10% on an option, unless it's like a year or two out, I mean, it's probably not something that I would really want to mess with. I think that if unless it's like the one the other day to where you can almost get half the price of the underlying for it, then typically in situations like that, I tend to decline the juicy premium because premium's juicy for a reason, and it's usually not a good reason.
In this case, that was correct in Vroom back in the day when everyone wanted to sell those 2.5 puts. I think they were trading like 40 odd cents, and it just seemed like maybe pricing in not enough juice, and that turned out to be the case. But resurgence for Vroom. Are you in? Are you in on this one, listeners? Is this the canary in the coal mine that signals the resurgence of meme mania? Hit us up, let us know. Let's go out to our next one. We'll keep things more straightforward. This is a name we talked about before. This is New Holdings, another Brazilian name, ticker symbol NU, trading $4.78 right now. On the year, they've had a little bit of trouble. A year ago, they were trading $10.33. Then they gapped up to their high for the year of 12.25. This was on December 13th. And since then, they've pretty much done nothing but sell off. Hit their low for the year back in mid-June, like a lot of names did, right around 3.25. So they have rallied about $1.50 from there. They're trading $4.78 right now. So a little bit of resurgence over the last month, but over the last year, they're off about half. They're up about 20% in the last month, off 50% on the year still. Looks like someone maybe thinks, what we got going here? Yeah, looks like someone maybe thinks there's more upside to come, Uncle Mike. This is more straightforward. This, again, is kind of meme stock-esque paper. This is, folks gobbling up a lot of near-term calls again. 10,247 of the AUG5s, to be precise. These were 20 cents at 30. They said, we'll pay 30 cents. We'll take them all. That's a 107 vol, if you were wondering. There are earnings in this. I would hope so if they're swinging for the fences like this. The earnings are on the 15th, so we shall see very quickly if this trade is on the right side of history or not. But Mr. Uncle Mike, so far it looks like we're kind of 2 for 2 in meme adjacent type trades. What are your thoughts on these calls, and what do you think? Do you think the memes are back, sir?
It does have the meme feel to it, no doubt about that. Are the memes back? Oh gosh, I hope not. Unless one of them's a stock that I own, then I want them to be back, but I sure hope not. I think that just with what happened the last time around, it typically doesn't end well, and I'm hoping they're not back. But if all of a sudden we get a resistance at 4,200 in the S&P and the market starts tanking, the money's got to go somewhere. So why not? Let's look at some memes. But I don't think they're back, but you never know.
All right, let's get out of here in this segment on this one. Let's go out to another name we talked about of late. It's been a little while. This is Baker Hughes, ticker symbol BKR, Baker. Trading right now, $24.18, up about 30 cents. On the year, they've had a nice little run. A year ago, it was trading $21, and then they shot up to their high for the year in mid-March, 38.75. I think you can guess why. They kind of gave it up again back down to $30 on May 9th, and then they bounced again up to $37.68 on June 6th. So they hit their high close to June 8th. They're still at $37.50 on June 8th. So still looking pretty good on June 8th. Not quite their high for the year. That was March 25th, $39.78. And then after June 8th, kind of along with a lot of the energy prices out there, they have taken a bit of a hit, back down to $24.18. So they're still up on the year, but only about 14%. And they're down over the last month. They're down about 15%. So bit of a hit out there of late for Baker Hughes, but still a decent year. And looks like somebody, Mr. Uncle Mike, may be deciding this far and no farther for this name. Someone coming out and looks like selling nearly 5,980 of the September 20 puts. Getting a quarter for these, so they got a little bit of price improvement. They were 20 at 35 when they went up, so looks like they got a nickel better. That's a 52 vol, so Nothing to sneeze at. This is kind of an old school line in the sand put type trade. I don't hate this level. $20 is pretty much exactly the 52-week low, right around there. They got a 52 vol. They got 25 cents for it. I don't hate any of this. If they like the stock, that's a good way to pick it up. There are earnings the earnings are in October, so no earnings in this. So this is just a straight up bit of harvesting the old risk premium. Mr. Uncle Mike, what do you think about this? Are you a fan of these 25-cent puts or not so much?
I mean, if you want to get paid to get into it, you believe it's going to go there, great. I don't follow this stock, so I really can't comment on it that way. But there's definitely worse ways to get into a stock, that's for sure.
That there are. And there are also worse ways for you guys to hear about the strategy block. So let's get to a good one. Let's have the official one of Uncle Mike right now.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Strategy Block. I was just joking. I don't know of any other ways you can really get a strategy block. That's us. That's our branding. We own it. It's Uncle Mike or nothing when it comes to the strategy block. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is on your mind today?
I want to talk about naked short strangles. So in my 4-week series of trades that you need to know about, but trades that I never do, this concludes this 4-week series with which I've had in the strategy block. So what is a naked short strangle? And why on earth would anybody trade it? Well, first off, let's just look at an example. Let's say XYZ stock's trading at $100 per share, and you believe the stock's going to stay between 95 and 105. Well, you can sell the 95 put, and you can also sell the 105 call. You sell them both naked. And if the stock stays between those two, then both the call expire worthless and the put will expire worthless, and you make your full credit, and it's that easy. Well, when is it not that easy? Well, of course, it's not that easy when the stock actually goes below 95 or above 105. And so when doing that, oftentimes people are tempted to do a naked short strangle when they try and get something really far out of the money, because after all, what are the odds of the stock going this far? And then, as if life couldn't get any better, they realize that the maintenance requirement is only on one side of a naked short strangle because of the fact that you can only lose on one side of it. You just don't know which side you might lose on. So when people see, oh, I can get this amount of money for the stock not moving this far, and if it doesn't move that far on the other side, I don't have to put down any more maintenance margin. How can I lose? Well, here's how you can lose, folks. You're selling a naked call option. You're selling a naked put option. And if the stock does move too far, then you will get hurt in a very significant way. So let's look at our example of the 95-105 short strangle. If the stock goes below 95, you're on the hook all the way to zero. If the stock goes above 105, you're on the hook all the way to infinity and beyond, in honor of Buzz Lightyear, when you do a trade like that. So when doing so, oftentimes a naked short strangle, you'll win most of the time on it, most likely. But this is a huge but that not a lot of people like to listen to. So if you just turned off your podcast where I said you'll win most of the time, well, hopefully you didn't, because I'm going to say the but here, and the but's very important. But when you lose, it's going to typically wipe out a lot of profits that you gained along the way, if you even have them. So it's a high probability trade, but it's also a trade to where when you lose, you're going to lose a significant amount of what your upside has already been. So why am I talking about a naked short strangle if it's something that I never do and I'm saying mean things about it? Well, you need to have an understanding of how it works. Because if you are going to do other trades and combine a naked short strangle into this, which there are instances where I will do that. For example, if I own the stock and I want to sell more premium, then I'll sell a strangle. Now I'll create another short put position, so I wouldn't technically be naked when I would do something like that. But the point is that I understand the guts of this trade and how it works and how it can work with other trades combined with doing this. If you'd like more information on this, check out my YouTube channel. Type in St. Charles Wealth Management and type in short strangle and you'll find it. Or follow me on Twitter, because I am tweeting that thing out in the next couple minutes at Mike TOSAW.
There you go. At Mike TOSAW is the place to go on the old Twitters. While you're on Twitter, maybe you want to vote in our questions of the week. We might be adding a fun new one right now as well. So let's check it out. A little bit of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Mail Block, the portion of the show where we take your questions, your comments, also put the spotlight back on you. I'm just putting the finishing touches because we were just debating it all show long. I think we're going to do the unprecedented step of having a second question of the week this week, listeners, because it's on everyone's brain. So that question is going to go live as soon as I hit this button, listeners, which is we've seen an explosion of call options paper in GameStop, AMC, VRM, VBig, BBY, etc., which raises the question, is the meme frenzy back? I should probably put meme stock in there. There we go. Usually I'm not the one doing these, listeners, but today, hot off the presses right here. Here we go. Going to go live right now. And bam. So there we go. A rare double question of the week, listeners, because our actual question of the week right before the show went live was volatility has many causes. However, which of the following factors do you feel is the primary driver of the current volatility environment? Gave you 3 choices plus the infamous other. Earnings season, the Fed, Ukraine, or other. If you pick other, you have to explain yourself. The results are coming in for there. Speaking of the results, let me pay off really quickly last week's question of the week. We asked you about the artist formerly known as Facebook, a.k.a. Meta. They're struggling right now. Stock down over 50% on the year. Currently trading around 163. Obviously, it's north of that now. If you had to purchase an at-the-money call or put expiring at the end of the year, which way would you go? And 48.3% of you said, look out below, you're buying the puts. 28.3% of you said you're buying the call. Rally ho, obviously the right trade for this past week. For the entire year, different question. And then 23.3% of you saying, you're done with Meta. All right, Uncle Mike, we got a threefold for you here. First off, are you surprised that our audience pretty much universally faded Facebook? They want to know more of it. B, what do you think our audience, well, I told you what they're voting for right now, but are you surprised that our audience is entirely voting for the Fed right now as the main driver of volatility? And if you have an alternate vote, have at it. And then C, and our unprecedented third question of the week that just went live, do you think our audience is going to vote yes or no I should say, are the meme stocks back? Threefold for you, sir.
Holy cow, your people must be busy. You're putting them to work. Maybe it's in the spirit of the new Minions movie. You got yourself some minions to get some more work done for you with 3 questions of the week. That's just crazy talk. In terms of the audience fading Meta, I'm really not surprised with that. It's very unpopular. So we do hold Meta in some of our portfolios. So I still like it. I still think it can be a good thing by all means, but can't say I'm surprised. You're going to have to sit on this one for a while if you want to reap the reward. No doubt about that. Is the Fed the driver of the volatility? I think ultimately, yes, they are, because they still are in play. What is unique about the Fed right now is the fact that 75 basis points per raise doesn't seem like a big deal anymore. So the market seems to be somewhat accepting of that. But yeah, I do think they're ultimately the driver of the volatility. And finally, in terms of are the meme stocks back, I don't think they are as of yet. If they do come back, then what the heck? It'll make for some great content for the show. So we shall see.
Well, our live chat certainly seems like they're thinking the meme stocks are back. Options Queen, I think the meme stocks could be back. Unlimited says he was running his scans today. He saw AMC, Bed Bath & Beyond, Wish. Yeah, we didn't mention Wish. They've been another one. Fubo, all these ones. He said that's kind of memey. Frank 1209 says I agree. Meme stock makes sense as the meme stock mania was a way for day traders to try to sell them to affect the markets with inflation, etc. I could see the timing is perfect for a resurgence in the meme stock mania. So yeah, Option God, he agrees too. So a lot of our live chat saying yes, they're feeling the oats of meme stock mania. Let's see what our audience has to say out there right now, listeners. So far, 78.3 just went live. A lot of people already diving in to vote on it. This one's obviously this one's striking a nerve. Just went live about 30 seconds ago. 78.3% of you saying yes, the meme stock frenzy is back. 21.7% saying no. How much of that is hopium? How much of you that you're hoping this meme stock time? By the way, still 100% of you line it up on the Fed side there. Intriguing stuff, as it is time for Uncle Mike and I to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until we can gather here together on the Option Block show on Thursday. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is on your radar?
Well, I think like what I said earlier, I'm really looking at the 4,200 level right now in the SPX. I think that's a very key number. So watching that, of course, watching the things with which I'll always watch with the 10-year, as well as commodities and all that other fun stuff. But right now, I think the main point that I'm looking at, even more so than the news, which is kind of rare for me, would be the 4,200 mark on SPX.
All right, everybody. That music means it is, unfortunately, time to draw to a close this edition of the Movable Feast, known as the Option Block. Don't worry, this show back on Thursday for you. And, of course, a lot of options living to be done in between now and Thursday, including coming up a little bit after this show. We got the crypto rundown coming up at you, listeners, so that should be a fun one. As always, a great guest joining me to help break down the mad swings, the mad volatility in the world of crypto. This time we have Dan Gunsberg, the co-founder of the HXRO network, coming on the show. So that should be fun. And of course, a lot of vol to be found out there, a lot of OI changes, unusual activity, skew, all kinds of good stuff, and a whole bunch more. Just don't tell Uncle Mike he's not a fan. Speaking of Uncle Mike, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, folks want to hit you up. They want to learn more about what you have cooking. Maybe check out some of your vidges. Where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter. I need more Twitter people. At Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. And if you are looking specifically for a financial advisor who delves in the option product, assuming it's appropriate for the clients, of course, check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, for more information.
stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. They missed their chance to swing and try to grab that brass ring of the ultimate exclusive vintage G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter today. But you can give them a follow nonetheless. At Option Pit is the place to go. Check them out. OptionPit.com is the place to go. They'll be back here on Thursday. Once they're done with all their legion of vacations. You know, I go on vacation. I'm still doing shows. My producers don't care. They work me to the bone. They say, you're working, vacation or not. Back again a little bit later today for crypto. My schedule for Tuesday is still kind of crazy, so busy tomorrow. But we will have Pro Q&A on Wednesday this week for all you pro folks, as well as, of course, Options Bootcamp and Options Playbook Radio. So you're getting your double dose of education on Wednesday, plus a Pro Q&A, so it's really a trifecta of education on Wednesday, especially for you pro cats out there. Then back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.